Up your smart home game with a smart lock. Let's check this out. Dave Taylor here, and I'm going to be installing this. This is the Kwikset Halo touchscreen Wi-Fi enabled smart lock, and it's really nice. This is what the unit actually looks like, and you can see there's a big touchscreen on the top. You touch it with your palm, it will light up, punch in your code. You can have 250 different codes. Punch in your code, it communicates via Wi-Fi, it notifies your phone. You have all this control over it as part of a smart home, but most importantly, it unlocks your door. The whole thing has gone dead because you forgot to replace the battery. Well, you should have replaced the battery, but it's not a crisis because there's also a keyhole. And Kwikset has something called Smart Key, which lets you rekey this if you want, so that you can actually have it use the same key you have in one of the other doors in your house, like your back door or your garage door. Great feature. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch over and I'm going to show you the install process. And then I'll show you how to do the programming so I can put in a couple of codes, because obviously that's like one of the key features for this. And then finally, I'll give you some closing thoughts and we'll do a quick demo of actually locking and unlocking it. So now, one of the things I really like about this is there's no hub needed. I have had multiple smart deadbolts on my house in the past, and they've all required some sort of a hub, whether it's something like the Samsung Smart Things, or I have a Yale lock right now that has its own little tiny hub that it uses, and if I don't have that hub plugged in, then the lock works, but I have to have my phone within like 10 feet of it to get any of the smart notifications. Not very helpful. So not needing a hub and having it just work via Wi-Fi is fantastic. If your internet goes down, it's still going to work. Nothing's going to go bad. It's not going to die or fail. All that's going to happen is you won't get notifications. So if your Wi-Fi is a bit spotty, every so often it might not give you a notification, but the lock itself will still work 100% the same. This also means because it uses Wi-Fi, there's no subscription. I have had a lot of smart home devices that require a subscription. A lot of the cameras do that. And I really, really can't stand that. If I've spent $100, $200, $300 on a product, I don't expect to then be nickel and dimed for $4.99 a month so you can access that video via the cloud or something. It's just like, just give me the price and then give me the service. So this does not have a subscription, another big win. 250 codes you can punch in here, or actually more likely, use the app on your smartphone, Android or iPhone. You can use either. 250 codes, and you can specify them to have a time range. So if you have a house cleaner, you can set it up where they can only unlock the door between maybe 9 and 3 in the afternoon. So if they swing by at 11 p.m. with some friends to have a party because you're out of town, the key won't work, or the code won't work, I should say. So really great. You can also do a date range. So this is a good for like an Airbnb sort of thing, where you can set up in advance that you're going to have guests from the 14th to the 17th. No problem. You can download it and use the app, have it automatically downloaded onto the deadbolt, and then on those days their code will work, and then as soon as they leave, boom, it's gone. And that's something you don't have to deal with. You don't have to remember on the day they leave to go ahead and turn the code off. Really handy. All of this is done, as I'm showing here, via the Kwikset app, which we will definitely be looking at more closely as I continue the install. Remote lock, remote unlock, notifications on your phone. You have a history of every time it's been locked or unlocked. If you give each of your children a different code, you can then see who shows up when. That's handy. Like I said, there's a smart key system. I don't exactly know how it works, but I imagine you take this plate off and you have access to actually put in a different key than the one that's included, and then specify this is now the one that should actually unlock it if I'm in an emergency situation and I can't use the touchscreen. Super helpful. You can also, to avoid having like if you do like 1111, which would be a horrible code, but if you did that, over time, what would happen is that there would be like a big fingerprint blur there. So one of the things Kwikset does that's really smart is you can enter any random sequence as long as your last digits are a valid PIN, then that will actually unlock the door. So if you really wanted to use 1111, you could get into the practice of doing like 2, 4, 6, 8, 1111. And then all of those would then have fingerprints on them, right? Now, I have to guess most people don't really have to worry about some person who watched too much CSI going there with fingerprint powder and like seeing where the fingerprints are. But I guess if you're worried about security, that's something to do. Now, I should say these locks are also BHMI and ANSI certified to grade AAA, which is great. They are also Alexa and Google Home certified, and they work with those. So with Alexa, once it's all set up, I can say, Alexa, unlock front door, and it won't unlock the door, but it will then wait for me to say a PIN sequence if I really want to do that. Now, I'm much more likely to want to lock the door via a voice control, so that's something that's very convenient. Some people are going to say, I don't ever want this hooked up to Alexa, which I understand. Other people might say, well, one of the benefits of hooking it up to Alexa is I can use Alexa schedules, so I can then do things like say, every night at midnight, lock the door. So if someone comes in and they forget to lock the door, the deadbolt will automatically at midnight lock, which is really nice. I do the same thing with my garage door. Is every night at 10 p.m. my garage door closes. Whether it's closed or not, it sends the close signal. Really helpful. So this is powered by 4 AA batteries. I think they should last around a year, and that's pretty much it. The dimensions you can see here, it is 4 inches by 4.2 inches by 9.7 inches. And of course, I'm talking about the thickness, but that's really the whole thickness. And we'll see that once I do the install. In fact, speaking of the install, let's get to it. The first step is going to be to remove your old deadbolt and lock assembly. You're going to end up with a bunch of holes, and yes, it looks like my door could do with some painting, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to keep moving forward. The next step is to pull out most of the pieces. Now, it turns out that the way Kwikset did it is that the steps are denoted in boxes, but I like to spread everything out and see what I'm going to do. The only box I left, and you can see it as a number 5 on it, is the one with the batteries. The first actual step is to go ahead and install the latch. And what you want to do is you want to slide it in from the side and make sure that the turning assembly in the latch is centered in that hole. There's a way to adjust it to get it to fit perfectly. And then you go ahead and screw down the latch with 2 screws, easy enough. You do want to do that with the bolt fully extended, as I can showing here. Next up is the exterior assembly, which includes a part that goes through the center. You want to line it up to the center of the latch so that it goes in correctly. And then there's a wire that you want to make sure goes underneath the latch assembly. The next step is to install the mounting plate, and this is done with 2 long screws. You can see one on either side there in the center, and again, make sure that wire is going through the proper spot so you have no problems later. And now from the outside, use your key to try locking and unlocking the door. I did that and it worked just fine, which was a huge relief. The next step is to install the interior assembly, and this is where you're going to connect the 2 parts of the cable. Notice the tiny arrows, line them up, and it goes in perfectly smoothly, and it's super easy to work with. Then you want to install the interior assembly, and that's held in place with 2 little screws that connect to the mounting plate. Make sure you use the lower holes as I'm doing here. Ready to power it up? Well, that's why we're going to put in the battery pack. Once you do so, it actually locks and unlocks a couple of times, and it beeps, and there's an LED that flashes. Lots of things happen for a couple of seconds, and then look on the front plate and it will show you whether it succeeded or failed. For me, it succeeded. Again, thank goodness. I've gone ahead and put the interior cover on, and there are 3 tiny screws that go into the interior cover, one on each side and one from the bottom. They are a little tricky to put in, but I found that I could do it with a very small screwdriver and a very large amount of patience. Finally, with it all set up and installed, here's what the inside looks like. Very nice, and I'm really noticing my door jamb has seen better days. From the outside, the touchscreen lights up, everything looks great. I'm done. Now it's time to actually work with the software app. So let's go to that step. Mission accomplished. Now, I don't mind admitting I get a little stressed installing something that complex, but Kwikset made it really easy. The first thing I did is I looked at the instruction manual and I read through it in advance, so I had some sense of the steps involved. And then they have a really good animated video on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description here, but it's absolutely a great thing to watch as you do the install. And what I did was I would watch a little segment and then pause it and then do that step. And then when I was done, I would watch the next segment, pause it, do that step. So it really made things really easy. This is definitely a user installable, but expect it's going to take you probably about an hour or so. Having done all of that, it's done, it's installed. And I then paired it with the app, which was easy to do. I'm not going to share that with you because, quite frankly, I don't want you to know my codes and my account password and all of the recovery questions and all of my cell phone numbers and all of that stuff. So a pretty typical install process. And once it's all installed, I'm on Wi-Fi, as is the net and is the lock, I should say. And so now I have access. So now let's bring up my phone, and you can see here that my lock is unlocked. Now I'm about 12 feet away from the lock. I'm going to lock it, and I just do that by tapping on the app. And it's kind of noisy. I have to admit, it's one of the noisier ones I've experienced, but that's all that's involved for locking it. Now, I can go into settings, and there are some different settings I can use to tweak the experience. One that I really like is secure screen. We'll see that in a moment when I go outside and demo it for you. But that's what I was talking about earlier, where you can punch in random numbers. The way it actually works is it actually shows you a couple of numbers, and once you've tapped those numbers, then you can enter your code. So it actually works really well, and if someone wants to look from an angle to try to see what buttons you're constantly pushing, those are part of the sequence, so it really defeats that really neatly. So we don't want to do that. We want to go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and add a person. Now you can see I have some people already added, but we're going to go and add a test person. I'm going to give them a name. We'll call them Tester. And then I'm going to give them this incredibly secure password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then we're going to give them a schedule. Now, I just want this tester to work on certain days of the week. So we're going to do just weekdays. So we're going to turn off Saturday and Sunday. And we're going to go, let's see, back. And yeah, see, it's a little tricky to figure out this app. What you need to do is you need to submit if you make a change. So now you can see that. And then the start time, we'll do from noon till 6 p.m. So let's go 6 p.m. So from noon to 6 p.m. and I will submit that. And then I will submit this. And that's as easy as it is. And I'm remote. I could be doing this from 500 miles away. And now I have a new code on my smart deadbolt that is 12345. Not the best code in the world, but when I'm done with it, I can go back here and I can delete it, which is good, but I actually want to test it out. So let's go outside and I'll actually show you how it works. The final test is to actually be outside and use it. So to wake up the touchscreen, I find that just using the side of your hand works great, and it's unlocked. So let's lock it. And now that I'm sitting a couple inches away, you can hear it's kind of loud, but That's okay. So now we have the door locked, and I can confirm that I cannot get in. So I'm going to use the side of my hand again, and it gives me 2 digits. Now this is part of its security system to make sure you don't end up with the same like 1 or 3 or 4 spaces with lots and lots of fingerprints. So when I wake it up, I'm going to have to actually enter those 2 digits. Then I can enter the code, and what did we do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's it. It's unlocked. Super easy. Now, there's really a lot to like about this. And obviously, having this key right here, front and center, means if you want to have some people use the touchscreen, but you want someone else to just use the key because they're old school, totally doable. Now, all that's left to talk about at this point is the price. But before we get to the price, I'm going to ask if you could subscribe to my channel. Click or tap on that red subscribe button, and we're connected. Really appreciate that. This is the Kwikset Halo touchscreen Wi-Fi enabled smart lock, and it's $189.95, currently discounted down to $177.23 at Amazon.com. It's a great upgrade. It's a smart lock. You can lock it and unlock it remotely. You can set codes with a variety of parameters. You can even hook it up to your Alexa or Google Home system. So really a lot of flexibility. Definitely a great upgrade for most houses. So that's all I got. I'm going to go ahead and lock my door and make sure no one comes in. And I'll hope to catch you in my next video.